Welcome back to the second session on SSAS and MDX training. In this session, we are going to discuss about data source views, the heart of SSAS projects. Okay, and before going to that, before starting with data source view, I would like to add a couple of points which will make you easy to understand what we are going to discuss. That is, as you all know, SSAS project, what it will do, it will read the data from data warehouse and create aggregated data. If you take this sentence, this is the job of SSAS projects. Generally speaking, at high level, this is what SSAS project will do. It will read the data from the data warehouse and create aggregations and store the aggregated data in your analysis server. This is high level. I'm not saying this is the exact definition of that. So to do the same, let's say this is your data warehouse and this is your SSAS project. What needs to be done? The first thing is setting the connection. And the second thing is identifying the tables from here, right? What are all the tables you want to create aggregations here. And the third step is identifying which one is the master table and which one is the child table. Or in other words, master and transaction table or parent and child table, both are one and the same. So you have to identify the tables and pull it here. And then the fourth step is identifying the columns that you want as part of your aggregated design. So if you see, let me take chart here. So the first thing is set the connection to the data warehouse. Second thing is identifying all the required tables. In other words, identifying master and transaction tables that are required for your cube design. And the third step is identifying columns, right? And fourth step is processing. So processing means pulling the data. Pulling data from DW to analysis services, analysis server by creating aggregations. So these are the four steps at high level. If you see, these are the four steps that SSAS project will do. And we already discussed about setting the connection to the data warehouse and what we are going to use to do the same. Which object of SSAS we are going to use to create the connection between data warehouse and SSAS project. To set this connection, we use data sources and we create a couple of data sources pointing to some database yesterday in last session. And in this session, we are going to discuss about identifying the required tables for your data warehouse creation. Sorry, to create your SSAS project. Now, this is the project which I have taken and I created data source and I am pointing to the one second, let me erase these drawings. Okay, and I'm pointing to AdventureWorks. Sorry, it's pointing to TempDB. Let me connect to AdventureWorks DW. Now the data source connection is set. The first step is done. The next step is identifying the required tables for creating the cube solution, that is SSAS solution. Why we have to identify few tables or the tables that are required? Why can't you use all the tables that are present in the data warehouse? Let's say this is your data warehouse, a big one, and you have some 2000 tables. And if you use SSAS project, you will create a lot of temporary tables to store the data temporarily before moving to the destination from source. So there will be some thousands of tables which you don't need actually for your analysis purpose. Okay, there will be so many junk tables, we can call it as, or the tables that are being used by SSAS packages as intermediate tables. Now, If you want to create an SSAS solution pointing to this data warehouse which is having 1000 tables, and as per your requirement you need only 5 tables from this data warehouse, will you pick that 5 tables to create the SSAS project, or will you use all the 1000 tables? What is the best way of doing? Which one will be the best for performance? So picking that 5 tables. So if you need only 5 tables for your analysis, then you just better pick the 5 tables and leave the rest. So in the same way, to achieve the same, this data source view will help us. Data source view will help us to find out or to pull the tables that are required, tables or views that are required for creating your SSAS cube. So before creating a new data source view, I hope you guys remember the view in the database. How many of you guys know about the view? View in SQL Server. What is a view? View is nothing but virtual table, temporary one, right? If you see, let's say this is my table. I have a table called dim product. Let's say this is my physical table for which the memory will be allocated in my database. Now, if I create a view on top of it, create view name, let me give it as products is the view name that I'm giving, as select star from dim product. So now a view is created and I can call using this view from next time onwards. So it will go and hit the view, it will take the select statement and it will retrieve the results. So view is nothing but a virtual table where you can have one valid select statement and the select statement will be executed and pulled. There are so many advantages of having views, and which was covered as part of SQL Server training sessions. You just go through the video if you find time. And this view, the first and foremost advantage of having the view is restricting the columns. Let's say in this dim product table you have something around 20 columns, and for your analysis purpose, if you need only 2 columns, that is product key and English product name, why you need to expose everything? You can filter those 2 columns, right, using the view. Let me create one more view. Create view only prod names is the name of the view, as select star from dim product. Instead of this star, I'm gonna take product key, comma, English product name. So if I execute this view, a view is created again. So I'm using this view if my requirement is to show only product key and product name, right? This is a virtual table and no physical memory will be allotted for this particular view, and hence there won't be memory constraint in using the views. So one of the advantage of using the views in database is restricting the columns. Instead of providing access to all the columns, you can restrict, you can provide only access to the limited columns. In the same way, if you go to the data source view in SSAS, this data source view helps us in restricting the number of tables. If I have 1000 or 2000 tables in my data warehouse, instead of exposing all the tables, we can pick selected tables for our analysis purpose. Let me create one data source view so that you will get clear picture about it. Click on next, and here you can see the data warehouse, the data source is selected. So the data source, whatever you have created here, is visible here. So that means which data source you want to use to pull the tables. For example, if I have more than one data source created here, let me copy and paste couple of data sources, Control C, Control V, and now if I try to create a data source view, then it will show all the data sources that are part of this project. So which data source you want me to select, okay, in order to pull the tables that are required for this analysis service project. This is how, let's say you have 4 to 5 different data source connections set. One to SQL Server, one to Oracle, one to Teradata, one to MySQL, and one to MS SQL, like that. So you can select, okay, get this set of tables from one data source, this set of tables from one data source. This is the place where you have to select from where you are going to pull the tables for creating a particular data source view. Click on next. I'm going to pull the data from using AdventureWorks DW, and now here I have an option to filter. If there are, see, there are some 40 to 50 tables available in this data warehouse. So I don't need all the tables. Let's say I need only a couple of tables. One is dim product. I can filter it dim prod, and I can take it, and the category I'm taking, or simply you can double click it, and subcategory I'm taking. So these three. Or if you want to add everything, it's self-explanatory, right? You can use this button to add everything, use this button to remove everything, and if you want to add a particular table, then you have to select that and use this arrow. And if you want to remove a particular one, select this and use this button here. Now let me go for dim product, and once I selected this table, you can see this button is getting enabled. If I remove this button is disabled, and once I selected it, this button is enabled. So why? Because if you see the button name, it is add related tables. I hope you guys know the concept of SQL Server, that is foreign key relationships. How many of you are aware of foreign key relationships in SQL Server? So when two tables are generally, foreign key in SQL Server is used to connect two tables. Most of the cases it will be master table and transaction table, or in other words parent table to child table. If you see our SQL Server, our database, generally select star from dim product. This table will be joined with fact internet sales. Why? Because here the fact internet sales is the transaction table and dim product is the master table. So to join, to set some foreign key reference, you need to have a common column. So what is the common column in these two tables? Let's see that. Top 10 star I'm taking. Top 10 star. So in this table, if you see product key is there, and in this table also you have product key, right? So this is the common column which is used to join these two tables using the foreign key relationship. And in the same way, if this table is related to any other table in the data warehouse using foreign key relationship, if you click this, the tables will be fetched. The set of tables will be fetched. If you see here, if you observe here, dim product is having relationship with fact internet sales, dim product subcategory, and another fact internet sales. So there are, sorry, fact reseller sales. My apologies. So dim product is having relationship with all these three tables. Now I selected the table again. If I select the button, what will happen? Nothing. Already these tables are added. The tables which are having foreign key relationship with the dim product are already added. Now let me do one thing. Let me take this fact internet sales. I selected this particular table. Now if I click on add related tables, it will go and pull all the tables which are having foreign key relationship with this fact internet sales table, and let's see how many tables are there. There are many tables. So I've added all the tables got added. For now I don't need all this stuff, so let me remove this particular selection. These 4 tables are more than enough to go further. So let's assume these are the 4 tables that are required for my analysis purpose, for the purpose of creating my analysis services cube. So click on next, and what is the name you want to give? I want to give AdventureWorks DW. This is fine. Click on finish. This is the data source view. Have you ever seen this kind of diagram? There are so many names for this diagram, and few people call it as physical data model, blah blah blah. So many names. Okay. So I've selected only 4 tables, and I feel that these 4 tables are required or enough to create my SSAS cube, which will be used by the business people for the analysis purpose. if the business guys give a requirement like I want to see product wise sales and subcategory wise sales and what is the third table I'm having here, reseller wise sales. So if they have given a simple requirement, then these four tables will do the job for me, right? So if these four tables are going to do job for me, why I have to select all the tables? If you see, there are so many tables left. You don't need all this stuff for your analysis purpose in this case, right? So this data source view is used to filter the tables that are required for your analysis purpose, for your cube creation. This is the first and foremost use of data source view. Once you create the data source view, then the cube can see only the tables that are present in the data source. It can't go and see the tables that are present in the data warehouse. Now, I'll show you an example. I said that the cube or the next further objects what we are going to create can see only the tables that are present in the data source view, right? Let me try to create a dimension just to demonstrate you. I clicked on dimension, use the existing tables. If I click on next, you can see only those four tables only those four tables that I have selected in the data source view. What happened to the remaining tables? These dimensions and cubes can't see those tables that are present in the underlying data warehouse. So this is one beautiful advantage of having data source view. It filters the tables that are required for your analysis purpose. If your requirement, let's say requirement means the one that you have, that you are working on, is just to provide product wise internet sales information, then where you have that products information, you have products information in dim product table. That is, you can see product name, product color, standard cost, and so on. And the sales information is available in the packed internet sales. That means you don't need these two tables also if your requirement is to pull the product wise sales, right? In that case, you can remove these tables also. Just select that, delete it. It all depends. The data source view is purely dependent on the requirements that you are working on. If your requirement says that if you require, as per your requirements, you have to add, let's say, some 10 to 15 tables from here, then you have to add it. If you need all these tables to meet the requirements given by the business, then you have to add it. So this data source view is used to filter the tables that are required for your analysis cube creation. So here, if you see, this data source view is purely dependent on the data source. If I create data source, I can point to only one database, right? Let's say this is pointing to some other database. And if I right click and click on new data source view, I can select any one data source. That means one data source view can have tables only from one database, right? So let me select the second one, click on next, and let's say I need 3 tables from this, click on next and finish. So this guy is having different set of tables. Let's assume the data source view AdventureWorks DW.ds is pointing to SQL Server and AdventureWorks DW1.ds is pointing to Oracle and DW2.ds is pointing to Teradata. So you can pull data from any one of the server, any one of the database. It's not like all merged and pull into one data source view. But you have an option. You can modify the query. You can write the query in such a way that you can point to different database in the same server. Let's say this is pointing to some local SQL server, right? The database name is AdventureWorks DW. The data source view which is created pointing this AdventureWorks DW data source, in the same data source view you can query some other table from some other database. I'll show you that's high level. Generally people don't use that. Why? Because it will lead to performance issue. How many of you guys are aware of the database name .dbo table name? If you give like this, you can pull the data from different databases. How many of you guys are aware of it? Okay. So that's high level, little bit to say, and you are at the starting point. If anyone can make a note of this particular point and remind me at the last sessions, I can give you a brief about that. By the time you will get some good clear picture about this SSAS, or else now if I take that point you will get confused. Okay, if anyone, let's say Kranti, can you make note of it? Pointing to or pulling data from different databases in the same server. I'll explain you at the end of the sessions. Okay. Now, one data source, you can create one data source view. This is one-to-one mapping. Right? If I want to pull the tables from data source 2, then select here, go and select the tables that you want, and next, and click on finish. And how many data source views is the best option? It all depends on the requirement. If you are having data from, if you're pulling data from different data sources, let's say Oracle and SQL, then I think 2 data source views is more than enough. It will do the magic. But having more data source view will add unnecessary burden. Unless it is required, don't go for more data source view. Generally, most of the cases, let's say nowadays, SSAS, ETL, extraction, transformation, and load is used like anything. People are using ETL tools to move the data from one data source to another data source, one source to destination, right? So if people are having data in SQL Server and Oracle, what they are doing is they are moving the data into one common database, and they are pointing to that particular database using this data source, any data source, and pulling all the tables into one data source view, which will be very easy for these guys to create the queue, to design the queue, right? So I have worked with only one data source view, hardly 2 data source view, but not more than that. It all depends again on your requirements. Few applications they'll be maintaining in so many different database systems like Teradata, MySQL, Oracle, even in Excel files. So in that case, you don't have any other option. You have to go for each and every a separate data source view for each and every database type. So in short, data source view, the first step is it filters the tables that are required for your analysis service purpose. Analysis service project creation. Now, I don't want all these tables, so let me remove all this stuff to make it simple and easy to look, right? So that it will be easy for you guys to understand. Let me take all the tables out. I'll take dim product, and let me take all the related tables and click on OK. Let's say these tables are required for me, and I have added the tables that are required for the analysis service creation. Now, this is not the only advantage that we have in using data source view. Data source view provides us so many different options here. So if you know all those options, that will be very, very, very useful. So let me explain you one by one. So here I'm going with the assumption that these 4 are the tables that are required for my cube creation. So if you right click here, you can see some set of options. If you right click on a table, the same set of options are changed. a new set of options are available. And if I right click on a column, it's again a new set of columns, new set of options. So we have to go and understand each and every option that is available in the data source view. First, let's start with the options that are available here. The first and foremost one is, this is very, very important one as far as interviews are concerned. People will ask questions from this point. So make a note of it. New named query. What is the use of new named query? What is the advantage of having new named query? So if I select this, it will open a window where you can write your own query. So new named query, the shortest definition for new named query is nothing but a view in data source view. So generally where you create views? You create views in SQL Server. And I showed you, I created a couple of views and I showed you, right? I don't remember the view name. So let me create one more view. Create view test as select top 10 star from dim customer. So this is a view. Generally people create views in databases, right? If you want to create a view, select star from test. So this is the view I created in the database, and you can see it is pulling the top 10 records from the customer table. And if you want to create a view in the data source view, that means here if you want to create a view, then you have to go for new named query options. So what are the properties you are giving while creating a view? The first property you are giving is name. Create view name. In the same way, here you have to provide the name. Let's say prod sample. Okay. And what you are giving after that? You are giving a valid select statement, right? In the same way, give a select statement here. Select top 10 star from dim product. So that's it. Unable to parse your query. I think I have done some mistake. Let me check, correct it. So I have not given the space between the select and top. So now it should accept. So a named query is nothing but view in data source view level. Instead of creating view in the database, people uses named query to create a view in the data source view. So that is nothing but new named query. And if you double click on that, you can see whatever you created. So select top 10, all the columns that are present in the dim product table. I have given select top 10 star from the table name, right? That is dim product. So it is showing all the column names. If you don't have this, you can use this wizard, this area to design your select statement. I'll show you how to design that. Okay. First, you have to add the tables that are required to create the view. Let me add the table. Let's say I want to create a view using dim product. I have added the table. Now close it. So from this table, you want to show product key, product alternate key, and you want to show, let's say, English product name, and you want to show color. So I've added these 4 colors, and you can see the query is changed to select product alternate key, product key, English product name, color from the dim product. If I click on OK, the named query will be created, or in other words, a view will be created in the data source view. So this is very, very important, most frequently used one while working on SSAS cubes, and I'll tell you why and what is the difference between views and the named queries. So in the named queries, just like in views, you can add more than one table. How you can add more than one table in a view? So in view, how you will add 2 tables? How many of you know that? Let's say I want to create a view with the name prod sales. Okay. Sorry. As if I want to use more than one table in the view, see, view is nothing but a virtual table. It will take only one valid select statement. The select statement can have joins, group bys, whatever you wish to give. You can have anything. So select star from dim product. I'll name it as alias, name it as A. Inner join fact internet sales. I'll give it as B on A dot product key is equal to B dot product key. Now if I create this, I've given some wrong name, fact internet sales B. Okay, there is some common column names, right? A dot star, I'll give this A dot star, B dot star. Oops, I have to remove the common columns. Okay. So if you see here, now I have created a view using an inner join and using 2 tables. I joined these 2 tables using the inner join. Now if I execute this, it will join these 2 tables and get the information, right? In the same way, you can use more than one table to create the named query. Named query, blindly remember, it is nothing but a view in data source view level. So this is the level where you are creating the view and which we are calling it as named query. So let's see how to add one more table. Fact internet sales. Let me go for fact internet sales. It is here. Added it. Once you added it, just close this one and you can see the relationship is set. You can go to the properties to see the join type and all. Right? You can see the join type equal to and so on. You can change it whether you can, if you are good in joins, you can play with this particular tab, particular window. For now, let me leave it like this. And I'm selecting 4 columns from here and 2 columns from here, and those 2 columns are sales amount and tax amount. So I've selected these two and you can see these two got added here, sales amount and the tax amount. If I click on OK, the named query will be created with the selected columns. So like that you can use n number of tables. It is not restricted like you can use only 1 or 2, but it always important to keep in mind about the performance of the view that you are going to create using the new named query option in data source views. So people will ask you in interviews, why can't you create a view in the database which will have more advantages rather than creating a view in the named query in the data source view? That's the important interview question. So if you get a question like that, there are so many, not so many, couple of reasons of using the named query over the views. The first and foremost thing that we have to discuss is in real time, you will not have access to create views in the data warehouse. Let's say you want to create a view, okay, and if you don't have access to create a view in the data warehouse, then how will you do that? You don't have any other option, right? The best option is go and create the view in the data source view. So that is the first and foremost thing. Most of the cases, why? Because the data is very, very important to the clients. So if they give access to each and every developer who is working on it, so, and believe me, most of the clients, they'll give only read access, that to selected tables, not to all the tables. Okay, if you are working on some 10 to 15 tables, they'll give access to only those 10 to 15 tables, that to only read access. You can just write a select statement to pull the data from the tables. Or few guys, what they will do is they will create views in the database and they will give access to only views. They don't give access to the tables also. You have to pull the data using the views. In the same way, you will not have access like create permissions, delete permissions, drop permissions, all those stuff. You will not have that. And in that case, if you want to create a view to avoid all the unwanted columns, then the only option that is left with you is creating the view in the data source view. That's the main reason. And the second reason is sometimes you need to connect different data sources. Like I'll tell you one example. If you see the remaining options like creating indexes and all those stuff, it says that using the view in the database is better than using the view in the data source view. But still, just because of that reason, and I can't think of the remaining reasons here, but I mean very rare reasons. And the second reason is to make the development easy. Most of the guys who comes here for the development and tries to have everything in the cube solution, if they want to maintain everything in the cube solution, and if they don't want to have access or having changes in different places, let's say they want to make some changes to the existing view, they need to do it in 2 places. Couple of guys, they will go for only one. I mean few guys, they prefer to have everything in one place. So the change impact should have in one place rather than in 2 places. So that, I mean, these kind of scenarios where people go for named queries. But keep in mind, named queries is not so good performance wise. But when you don't have any other option, people go for these named queries. Compared to views, named queries are not so good in the performance wise. But it is easy to maintain. Like everything will be available in your solution where you can make the changes whenever you want. Okay. If you are dependent on some other operate people to make changes to the views or create views or something like modifying the views, then it will be hectic for you guys to wait for them to respond to your mails. So generally in real-time scenarios, people, there will be separate set of people, DB people or operate people who will execute your scripts. You have to provide the script and they have to work on that. They have to find time and they will give some time interval. In that time interval only they will execute the scripts whatever you provide. So there is a dependency. Instead of having the dependency, people don't worry about, if it is a simple one, they prefer to create the named query in the data source view rather than going for views. If you see, creating the named queries, there are few projects which I worked on where I used only named queries. The requirement was like that. Each and every table was having hundreds of columns, but what the number of columns that are required for me is just only 1 or 2. So I created a lot of named queries. But also I suggest named queries is not the best option. But still, sometimes you will not have any other option to go with. So if you observe, this is your dim product table. Okay. In this dim product table, there are some 30 to 40 columns. You cannot delete any column. You cannot write, you don't find any option to delete the column from here. The only option to delete a column or to remove a column from processing or from executing a in select statement is by creating the named query. If you select prods, select the prod table, and instead of selecting all columns, you can add whatever the columns that you wish to have for your analysis purpose. Let's say you need only English product name and product key. You can have only those two and click on OK. You can see this is the same table you used, but with the columns that with the only columns that you want for your analysis purpose. So this is one of the advantage of having data source views. You can filter out the columns that you don't want. And if you see the next option here, add or remove tables, which is pretty, you can easily understand this and you are aware of it already. I used it a couple of times. So if you click on that add or remove tables, it will take you back to the page where you selected the tables for this particular data source view creation. Hope you remember while creating the data source view, this page or this wizard was open and this is the place where you selected the tables that are required for your analysis service project, right? So add or remove tables, what it means? You can add a new table or you can remove the existing table. So you already selected 3 tables here, 3 or 4, let me see that, 4 tables here. If you select using this option, add or remove tables, you can remove the existing ones or add a new ones. So if you click on this, you can see if you want to add account, you can add it, and if you want to remove reseller sales, you can remove it. And click on OK. So if you see, the reseller sales is gone and the new table which I have added, that is dim account, is added here to the data source view. So let's say you created a cube solution and a new requirement has come. As per the requirement, you have to, for achieving that requirement, you have to add a new table which is not part of your data source view. Then the option you have to go for is add or remove tables to add the table that is required for achieving the new requirement. And the next option, if you see, new relationship. What is meant by relationship in the data source view? Relationship is nothing but the foreign key relationship. You know, right? Foreign key in SQL Server. The foreign key in SQL Server, here we call it as relationship. So if you observe, these two tables are related. So the relationship is set. The foreign key is set. And these two tables are having foreign key and the relationship is set. But this prod sample is not linked. Why? Because that is the data source view. That is the named query I created in the data source view. This is not the object from the database, right? So this is the one I created in the data source view. So if you want to give relationship between this table and the fact internet sales table, you can use the option new relationship. This new relationship is used to set the relationship between two objects in the data source view. It can be table from the database, or it can be view from the database, or it can be named query that we created in the data source view. Now let's see, these two are having common column, that is product key, right? Product key. So let's see how to give the relationship between these two. So right click, select on new relationship. You can see this is the foreign key table and this is the primary key table. Which one is called primary key table and which one is called foreign key table in SQL Server? So foreign key is nothing but transaction tables. Transaction tables will have the foreign key and primary key will be present in the master tables. So what is your transaction table here? Transaction table in the sense where you are having transaction information or the information about the sales or runs, transaction data. We have it in fact internet sales. And what is the common column that you are going to use to join? So the common column is product key. And what is your primary key table which you want to relate here using the new relationship option? That is, what is that one? Prods or prod sample? I think prod sample. And here we have product key. If I click on OK, it will say that the master table is not having the destination table. That is, this table is not having primary key defined. Do you want me to define? If I click on X, it will define a primary key. You can see a key is defined and also the relationship is set. You can see the relationship by double clicking on the line. You can see the relationship is flowing from foreign key, fact internet sales table, that is foreign key table, to prod sample, which is primary key table. And I suggest you guys to go through the primary key and foreign key concepts thoroughly once again before coming to the next session, and also master table and the transaction table and also joins before coming to the next session. Why? Because we will be using it very frequently. Okay. Now this is how you can give the relationships. So it is nothing but always the relationship flows from transaction table to the master table. If you observe, this is the transaction table and this is the master table, that means which is having primary key, and you can see the arrow mark will be always at the, should be at the primary key table. Okay, here this is the primary key table and this is the transaction table for this. So the arrow mark is here. For this, this is the foreign key table and this is the primary key table, and hence the arrow mark head is at the primary key table, that is being product. Now we created a view here, right? The beauty of data source view is whatever you create here, whatever you add, like I added a named query here, I added one more named query here, and I added the relationship here, and I have added a primary key for this named query here. Nothing will be reflected in your underlying data source. So you are pointing to AdventureWorks DW, right? Nothing will be created in your AdventureWorks DW. So it will be purely limited to the data source view. That is one beautiful option you have using the data source view. If you want to create a table and if you want to set some relationship, then this is the best place, right? Instead of going to and creating it in the data source, you can do it in the data source view, which will not reflect in your underlying database. Now you define the primary key for this product key column just because you are giving relationship from here to here. And can you define primary key column? Can you define any other column as primary key? Yes, you can. You can set whatever you wish to. There is no restriction. It will allow whatever the column you set as primary key, it will be set. But while giving primary key column for a named query, you have to be very cautious. You have to give on the primary key column, or else it will lead to problems. Always this primary key column should be unique. You know, right? About the primary key column. Make sure the data in that particular column which you are setting as primary key is unique. Okay. And now this is your table which is pulled from the database. If you try to modify the primary key column, logical primary key column for this particular table, it won't allow. It is fixed. Whatever it is given in the database, you have to use that. You cannot give or you cannot change the primary key column or mainly the primary key column of the table. But the named query is not like that. You can change it as per your wish. You can set whatever the column you wish to, you can set it. Okay. Now let's see the next option. Show friendly names. This is just a developer friendly option. If you click on this, it will show the complete name, that is what is the schema of this and what is the original name of this. And if you select the friendly names, it will show the friendly name that you have given. For example, there is a property called friendly name. If you select any table, let's say I selected dim product subcategory, which is very pretty big name, and I don't want to call it with the full name. So in that case, what I can do is I'll give some friendly name. Subcategories. So it will show subcategories as the name of the table. So the friendly name, whatever the name I have, this is a developer friendly name I can call as. If you want to see the original table name, you can uncheck this. It will show you the original table name. So that's a simple option, a developer friendly one, which you can use. And select all option. Don't ask me what is this. This is basic. What is select all? That is Control A. If you click on this, it will select all the tables. That's the option select all. Actually, it is not a required one, but Microsoft has provided it. And find table is to search a table. Let's say you have a lot of tables in your data source view. Let's say I'm adding all the tables and you have a lot of tables here. And you want to see where is the table dim account. Okay. Then you can make use of. There are some cases, some data warehouse, SSAS projects where some hundreds of tables are used to design the cube. Okay, we call it as big cube or huge cube, where there will be so many tables, and whenever there is an issue, it's very difficult to find out the table, whatever the table you are looking for. So this find table option will be really helpful when you are looking for a table that of your wish. Let's say I want to see fact internet sales table. I can search for it and I can double click on this. It will take me to the table wherever it is. Or else simply you can use the option. You can see the tables on the left hand side, right, where my mouse is pointing to, and you can select the table. It will take you to the table. I'm clicking on dim account. It has taken me to dim account. In the same way, dim time and fact internet sales, dim promotion, dim product. So it's an easy way to navigate to the particular table of your wish, wherever you want. On which you want to apply some changes, or which you want to see the data available in it, whatever that might be the reason. It helps you in finding the table that you are looking for. If you see the next option, arrange tables. Whenever, let me remove all the tables. I selected all and I removed it. Let me make a simple one so that it will be good to see. Dim product. I've taken only one product and added the related tables. And click on OK. Now if you see, there are only 4 tables, but these 4 tables are not arranged in a proper way. There is overlapping of lines and it's very difficult to find out from where to where these relationships are given. If you use the arrange tables option, it will try to arrange in the best possible way. Now if you see, the relationships are not overlapped and the tables are clearly placed, and you can see that the image looks clean and good now, right? So the arrange table option is used to arrange the tables in a better way. And as you all know, there are 2 types of layouts. One is rectangle and the diagonal layout. This is called rectangle layout. The tables will be placed in a rectangle layout. And few guys who are familiar with diagonal, they can switch it to diagonal and they can see. Few guys who, I've seen a couple of guys working on only diagonal layout. So if they are comfortable with that, you can go with that, or else you can see the option is changed to rectangle layout. Now if you click this, it will be rectangle layout. And the next option is refresh. This is one of the most important, and whenever I take interview, personally, I'm saying this, whenever I take interview, for sure I will ask a question from this refresh option. So I'll ask question like, what is the use of refresh button in the new in the data source view? You have to explain me the best way, right? If I'm impressed, then only I'll say that this guy is really experienced. Or the question will be in indirect way. First let me explain what is the use of refresh option in this particular page, and then I'll tell you what kind of questions you can expect from this particular concept. Let's say this refresh option, for example, let's say dim product you have, right? You have some 10 to 20 columns, and what I'm doing here is I'm adding a column to the dim product table. Alter table name, correct me if the syntax is wrong, add, I'll add a temporary column called test, varchar of 100. So what I've done is I've added a column, and you can see the same. Select star from dim product. You can see the column at the end, test, with all the null values. Now, how I can get these structural changes that happen to the table in the database? I modified the table, okay, and now I have to reflect the same in my data source view. So the option to use is refresh. If you click on refresh, what it will do is it will take all the tables that are part of your data source view, and it will go and compare with the structure in the database, and it will check whether any changes happen to the particular table. If any changes happen, then it will pull the list like this. You can see only one object modified, that is a column added. What is the change? Change is added. If you click on OK, the change will be applied. You can see the test is added to the dim product. Let's say I am removing the column. Alter table name. What is the syntax to remove the column, man? I forgot. Drop column, you have to give column name. Now I drop the column, okay. If I click on refresh now, you can see one object modified, and the name is test, and the change is deleted. So this is deleted. If I click on OK, the column is deleted from the data source view table. So that, now tell me what this refresh will do. Refresh, in short, if you want me to tell, refresh will take all the tables to the database, and it will compare the structure, and it will find out the differences, and it will list all the differences. All the differences includes the column adding, column deletion, or adding primary keys, adding some keys like that, adding foreign key relationships, and everything. Whatever the changes related to the structure of the table, everything will be listed. For example, these two are having relationship, I am deleting it. These two are having relationship, I am deleting it. And these two are having relationship, and I am deleting it. Now if I click on refresh, what will happen? So if I click on refresh, it will go and check the relationships. It will check all the changes. If you see, dim product has 3 relationships, and these 3 are new, which is not present in the data source view but present in the database. In the same way, these 3 tables, relationships, if I click on OK, you can see the relationships are set, right? So the refresh option will take the tables that are selected in the data source view, the structure of these tables, to the database, and compare it, and it will pull all the changes that are added or removed to the tables in the data warehouse underlying databases to the tables in the data source view. And this is very, very important. Why? Because if you add a new column to your database table, then instead of deleting the table and adding it back, if you click on refresh, automatically it will pull the change, and it will add to your data source view tables. The questions will be like that. What is the use of refresh option in data source view? This is the routine way of asking the question. Couple of guys ask questions like this. I have added a table to the data source view. I have added 10 tables, and one of the table I added one column in the data source database, underlying database, and I loaded data into that. Now I want to show that column in the cube. How can I do that? So the answer is, you have to click on refresh, so that it will pull all the new changes to add it to the table. And if you click on OK, the changes will be added to your data source view tables. Then use the columns in your queue. So that should be the answer. And remember, if any data is added to the table, it won't fetch that. It won't bother about the data. It will bother about only the structural changes. Any changes like adding a column, dropping a column, adding a primary key, adding a foreign key relationship, it checks for only this. It won't check for if there is a table, let's say XYZ table, and it has 100 records. I've added it to my data source view, and if 10 records are added to the data source table, nothing will happen here if I click on refresh. Right? Why? Because it won't look for data changes. It will look for only structural changes. Now let's see the next option, zoom. This is well known one to everyone. If you want to zoom and see, you can use it. Generally people don't use it. They'll set it to default, that is 100%, which looks good, right? And if you fit to window, it will fit all the tables to the window. You can see the two fit, right? If you select this option, it will fit all the tables that you have added into this window. That means up to here. That, in other words, I can say no scroll bars will come. If you add 100 percentage, and you can see the scroll bars coming, right? If you select the option fit to window, no scroll bars. How many tables you add, it won't bother. The size of the table will be decreased. Let me show you that. I've added all the tables here. Click on OK, and let me click the arrange tables and zoom to fit. You can see all the tables are showing in the same window and no scroll bars, right? Let me add more tables. I don't have more tables. What I can do, I can use system objects. System objects means system created tables. Whenever you create a new database, some system related views and tables will be created, and you can see so many are there, which we don't use in real time, but just to demonstrate the to fit option, I'm clicking on this. Okay, a couple of objects which are invalid, man. So I'll select only few. I'll take this guy. I'll take the views. I've added good enough number, so let me add OK. You can see everything is arranged in the same page. If you arrange it, you can see it's getting scroll bars, man. It's crossed. Let me click to see fit to window. You can see the max it try to fit into the window, the max, right? So this is how. And if you keep your mouse on, it will give you the table name or view name like this. But this is just bullshit option. They are showing you that we have this option also. Let me delete all the tables and add the tables that I want. Bin product. Let me add it. Add related tables and OK. All the tables are removed. Now let me add select arrange tables and let me select the zoom to 100%. So I'm back. Okay, so these are the different options that are available on the right click of the on the empty area. Now if you right click on the table, you have different set of options. The first option is named calculation. Here it is named query. Here it is named calculation. This is one important interview question. What is the difference between named calculation and named query? So named query is nothing but a view, whereas named calculation is nothing but alias column. What is meant by alias column? In SQL Server, select star from dim customer. Okay, this is a table, and generally if you see, if your requirement is to show only customer key and customer name, you will select only customer key, comma, first name, comma, middle name, comma, last name. You will select all these three to display the same. The calculated column is nothing but alias column. Select, if you take the same query, I can use these three to create one column called as full column. In other words, we call it as alias column, right? So I'm concatenating these three columns. I hope you know these concepts. If anyone don't know this, just let me know. I'll explain you. So I'm concatenating these three columns to create a alias column here. I'll name it as full name. So if you see this, it is showing customer key, comma, first name plus middle name plus last name joined together. Right? In the same way, I can use the same first name plus middle name plus last name in the named calculation. Why? Because named calculation is nothing but an alias column. So new named calculation, sorry, not dim product. I don't have dim customer here. Let me add the table. Okay. So for this, I'm creating a new named calculation. I'm naming it as full name. And if you see, I'm copying the same and click on OK. You can see a calculator symbol before the column name. That means this is a named calculation. So you can add extra functionality. You can add a alias column, or you can add a column. You can derive a column based on existing column, or simply you can derive a column based on some hard-coded value. This is hard-coded. Let's say this is the name I'm giving, just dummy name, and I'm hard-coding it to 100. Okay. So this is also a calculator column. So calculator column is nothing but alias columns. Okay. So if you see this, if you explore the data and see, you can find that two calculated columns that we created here. Let me go to the last column. See, this is the full name which we have created, and this is the hard-coded value that I have given 100 to this. But if you observe, it is showing as null values. Even though I have names, it is showing as null value. The reason behind that one is, let me explain you. This is very important. This was our query, right? So if you see 11002, this customer is having the name as null. Let's see why it is showing null. 11002, the name of the customer is Ruben Torres, and it is showing null because if you concatenate a string value, that is Ruben plus Torres plus null is equal to null. If you concatenate a null value with a string value, that result will be null value. So if you don't have this middle name here, then the name will come. Why? Because you have first name plus last name, but middle name is null. That is why it is showing null value. Null plus some string is equal to null. So what you can do is you can use isNull function to convert this null to some blank. I am converting it to blank. Now you can see Ruben space Torres, right? It was providing the result null value. In the result set, it was giving null because you are trying to concatenate a string value with a null value. I will show you a simple example. Select Rupesh plus null. The output is null. Rupesh plus blank. The output will be Rupesh. So don't try to concatenate string with a null value. This Rupesh is a string, and when I give null, it was returning null. So in the same way, this one was having null values, that's why it was throwing null, and hence I used the function isNull. What this isNull will do is it will check for the null values, and if it is any null value, then it will replace the null value with blank value. So blank can be concatenated. You can see here I am providing blank, and you can see the result is Rupesh. And if I provide null, it will be null. So what I have to do here to solve that? I have to modify the calculated column with the same functionality, that is isNull. Now let me refresh this and see the data. If you go to the last, It is showing all the names now. So you can provide any hard-coded value or hard-coded string, integer, or some calculation based on existing columns, or some calculation based on existing columns plus some hard-coded value. An example for existing column plus hard-coded value is, let's say I have a what is this, new column. I'm giving a name, first name, plus I'm giving some hard-coded text. Is first name. So this is hard-coded text and that is the column. Let's see what it will return. If I explore the data, you can see John is first name, Ruben is first name, Christy is first name, Elizabeth is first name. So this is the hard-coded text and this is the value from the column. So this is the named column. Named column is nothing but named calculation. Named calculation is nothing but an alias column to a table. And if you see the same option, if you try to see the same option in the named query, let's see what will happen. I'm creating a named query. Prods. I'm taking the prod table and I'm selecting all the columns. This is my named query. If I right click on this, you can see the named calculation is disabled. What could be the reason? Any guess? So this is a table and this is fixed one. This we are pulling from database, and if you want to add extra column, you have to have some option, right? But this is the named query which you have created, and if you want to add some extra column, then you can go to the edit named query. Already this is a select statement, just a select statement. Add some column as temp, right? When you have an option to add the column whatever you want, then why you need this option? New named calculation. You can always add. You can go edit the query and add 100 columns as you wish. But this is not like that. This is the table from the database, and hence you don't have that option you don't have that provision of adding the columns of your wish. So the option new named calculation is available for tables or views that is pulled from data source. But for the named queries, you won't find that option. And if you see the remaining options, it is like new relationship. You know this very well. The only difference between the new relationship here and new relationship here is, if you select this, the source table will be selected by default. That's the only advantage if you have. If I take dim product and if I click on this new relationship, the dim product will be selected in the source. If I right click on these prods, then the prods will be selected in the source. One step reduced for the developer. That's the only difference between new relationship option here and new relationship option in the on clicking of the table. And the remaining options, if you see, replace table with a named query or another table. So this is a very important option. Let's say you have a dim product table and you don't want all these columns, but you created a cube. Complete cube is designed, complete SSAS project is designed, and you came to know that it has all unnecessary columns and you want to remove it. So the only option is convert it into named query here. So instead of deleting the table and adding a new named query, you can replace the table with a named query, and you can see it is showing that window. Once you click on OK, this has become a named query now. The table is converted to named query. Now you can go edit it and you can remove whatever you don't want, right? Let's say you don't want these columns. Select this and click on OK, right? The option converting table to named query is useful whenever you use these tables and whenever you want to remove some columns that is of not required for your analysis purpose. You better convert it into named query and remove it. And you can see replace table with another table. Let's say by mistake you have added this table, okay, dim product subcategory. Instead of that, you wish to have add some other table. You can use this option. Select the table whatever you wish to add, that will be replaced with the table. Okay, that is the option. replace table with named query or with another table. And delete table from data source view is well known one. If you want to delete the table, you can just select it and click on delete, or right click and select delete table from data source view. And this option explore data is used to see the data, sample data. First 100 or 200 records will be shown, and you can use this option to see. For example, if you created a named calculation, if you want to see whether the data is coming correctly for that, you can make use of this option. In the same way, if you create a named query, if you want to check it whether it is coming correctly or not, you can make use of the option explore data. Now, if you see the options here, it will remain the same just like the table, but the only difference is here you have edit named query option. Why? Because it's a named query, there should be a provision to edit the columns. Whatever the SQL query you have given earlier, you should be able to change it. That's why you have that option here. Now, the final step for the day, that is options on columns. When I right click on the column, you have only one option that you can give, that is new relationship. If you click on this new relationship by selecting any column, the advantage is it will select the source table as well as source column. Wherever you selected, it will select by default. That's the only difference. And here also it's the same. You will have one extra option, that is setting the logical primary key, and if you select the new relationship, it will select the source as well as it will select the source column, source table and source column. So if you see the options, these options are repeating. Like for example, if you see the new relationship is repeating here on the table and on the columns, right? So I suggest you guys to go through each and every option and practice it again and again. It looks easy, it sounds easy whenever any trainer or any person is explaining you people, but when it comes into real time, when you have to work on this, then you will face some problem, like for first time or second time, or until you become familiar with SSAS concept. So I suggest you guys to go through it at least couple of times before coming to the next session. One important point here is, for example, if I know this product key is the primary key, right? Instead of that, if I give English product name as primary key and let's say it has duplicate values, it will accept it. It won't throw any error. It will throw error only when you are reading the data. I'll show you about reading the data and all. So whatever the relationship you set, it will accept. For example, English product name to product alternate key. Okay, it will set the relationship. It won't bother whether this is the common column or not. Blindly it will set the relationship. Or let me take sales amount and to some code. So this is different data types. Let me select the same data type. Might be size and tax amount should be the same. No, this is not. Which one? Can you tell me any one common? Okay, this class will be can be linked to English product name. You can see the link is set, the relationship is set. Actually, if you try to relate class with English product name, no data will come, right? But the relationship will be set. The error will be thrown only when you process the cube. That is the only disadvantage here. Whatever the relationship you give, you just drag and drop, it will take it from here to there. If it is of same data type, it will take it. Customer PO number, let me take it with, I don't have the common column here. Let's take model name with English product name. It will be linked. Why? Because these two are of string data type, that is varchar data type. So it won't bother. What I'm trying to say is it won't bother whether it is having the common data, whether it is the common column between these two tables or not. Generally in foreign key relationship, while giving foreign key relationship, you know, right, it should have common data, common column, and the data should be same, right? Same kind of data in both the columns in the different tables, primary key table and the transaction table, foreign key table. But here it won't bother about that. It will blindly set the relationship. The only condition it will check is whether the data type is same or not. This tax amount to the standard cost, I think it will set. Why? Because these two are same data type. But how these two are related, it's bullshit, right? But still it accepts. But while processing the cube, it will throw error saying that, man, these two are not properly related. These two are not the correct columns. These two are not the common columns. But while giving the relationship, it won't bother anything. It won't bother at all. Okay. Keep this in mind. This is very important, and this is the disadvantage, not disadvantage. This is not handled properly. So it is handled, but what I can say is this will lead to errors. If you are a fresher and if you are new to this technology, and if you don't know, if you try to give drag and drop and it is accepting the relationship, you will blindly give it. You don't bother whether that these two columns are common columns and having the same kind of data or not. But while processing, it will throw errors. It may mislead sometimes. That's what I'm trying to say. So this is about the data source view. We covered a lot about the data source view, and I suggest you guys to go through it and practice it at least a couple of times before coming to the next session. And in next session, we are gonna discuss about most important thing, that is master table, transaction tables, and dimension table and fact tables. What is the difference and similarities between these two? And also we are going to discuss about build, deploy, and process options. And also we are going to discuss about how to create dimensions in tomorrow's session. Thank you very much and have a nice day, guys.